Hey there, leaders. Welcome back to the Legacy Lounge. I'm Brin'na Rollins-Williams, and today we're talking about something that did transform my leadership, and I mean completely transform it, and the way that I coach and I lead and I support other leaders today. Welcome to Legacy Lounge, the podcast where you'll discover how to lead with purpose and build a legacy that matters. So if you're ready to step into your full potential, show up authentically for yourself and others, and create a lasting impact on the world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. You know those moments you get when someone asks you a question and you just stop? Like everything inside of you gets really quiet because you know this isn't just a question. It is the question that you needed to hear or needed to be asked. That's what we're going to dive into today. And I've got 6 questions that I use with my clients current day, and I use with the companies that I'm working with. And in the best way possible, it leaves them speechless. But before I share these questions, let me tell you a quick story. When I was leading 500 million in retail operations, I thought I was asking myself all the right questions. How do I hit these targets? How do I manage this team better? How do I climb the corporate ladder? But I was asking all the safe questions, the expected questions, and I was getting the results that you'd expect, but they weren't necessarily transformative at all. They were questions that allowed me to execute, but they weren't questions that allowed me to develop, which is why I emphasize asking better questions with leaders that I work with today. So let's dive into these 6 questions because I know you can't wait to hear them. And here's what I want you to do. As I share each one, notice which question makes you pause. Which question make you uncomfortable? Because that's usually the one that we need to tap into, because that is where the gold exists. So question number 1, how much risk are you willing to put yourself up for? And I'm not talking about financial risk here. I'm talking about emotional risk, the kind that makes your heart race a little bit. So here's what I've noticed with my clients. We're oftentimes talking about the wrong type of risks. We'll risk our time, we'll risk our money, we will risk our energy, but we won't risk being seen. We won't risk being vulnerable, and we won't risk being real. Something to think about. Question number 2. How much are you willing to challenge how you think? And how often are you willing to direct your brain? I love telling my clients to think of their brains like a toddler running around the house. Sometimes it's brilliant and it's creative and it's entertaining. And other times it is a full meltdown about why things aren't going exactly as planned. Both are real for leaders. So let me share a quick example on what redirecting thinking has looked like in real life. I've been traveling quite a bit. Over the last month and a half, we are celebrating a lot of family milestones, from birthdays to graduations to weddings. And I've been on the go. I thought that I could balance my role as an entrepreneur and travel, because why not? I'm able and capable of working remotely. I'll just figure it out as long as I have Wi-Fi. Well, showed me wrong. I got to experience some adversity a couple weeks ago, and there was no Wi-Fi. I actually had to drive about 20 minutes to a coffee shop to pop my computer up and lead a mastermind session that I knew I had and that I had prepped and planned for, but that I also assumed I would be able to do from where we were staying, and I couldn't. So as I'm at that Starbucks, I'm already flustered and I'm frustrated and I'm like right on time, and I hate being late. But because I didn't plan on needing to commute and set up and connect and get all the stuff, and obviously as a customer using Wi-Fi of a business, you have to buy something in order to use the Wi-Fi. So also had to get a coffee. That's besides the point. I was so frustrated with myself that I had this great plan. This was supposed to go a certain way, and it wasn't panning out that way. So that meltdown of the toddler is basically what I was doing. I was throwing a pity party for myself and a tantrum, if you will. And what's funny is that because of that situation that happened, I actually got to sit down with one of the baristas at the place where I was taking my call. Yes, I was at Starbucks, but it wasn't just your average barista. It was the manager of the location that I was working out of. And we got into the coolest, unplanned conversation and partnership collaboration on leadership. And I was trying to just rush. And I figured I would close up shop and get out of there as soon as I was done. But I chose to stay and actually sit and talk with this woman. And I'm so glad that I did, because it allowed so much valuable insight to come from being able to learn from her and what she is experiencing as a manager of a small box, large box, you name it. I got to learn about some of the points of frustration, obstacles, and roadblocks that she's working through right now. I also got to be there as a vent partner to allow her to work through some stuff that she was struggling with her manager, but also remind her in some of the beauty in her position. And a lot of value actually came out of a situation that I was overwhelmed and stressed about, and I should have just rolled with the punches, because sometimes when things are really planned, you don't want to change your mind. And when you do, some beautiful things can start to unfold. Anyways, back to questions. We are on number 3. So, number 3, how much will you be willing to invest? Now, this is not just about money. It's about emotional investment. You already know a lot of what we talk about is emotional intelligence, is about personal awareness, growth and development. It's also about fueling a culture that you build. But to ask it again, how much are you willing to invest? The emotional investment, of course, the energetic investment, the full commitment of your being dedicated to growth of yourself and of those you lead. Because once you choose to go all in, your team will show up, not just at a partial percent of capacity. They will show up to deliver for you, with you, and alongside you, because you've built something that is magnetic and that people want to be a part of. And it's one that you can't BS your way through. They know it's real because it's authentic and it's vulnerable, and it follows through. It follows through with integrity. Question number 4. What will you be willing to do to make sure that your investments pay off? This question separates the dreamers from the doers. It is about the commitment to the results. And I want to share a client testimony, if you will, or client transformation story here, because what you're willing to do to ensure that the investment pays off can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different leaders. But how I've seen this transform in a specific client of mine is that she was promoted to a very high level position. And it's because she earned it. She worked her ass off for it, but that she also was an excellent executor. She could deliver like nobody's business, and she always followed through. She was beyond reliable. She's got the scale and scope, but also her team loves her. And so getting into this new position, she's quickly learning that she no longer can be the executor. She is now the facilitator of what her teams are responsible to execute. Talk about feeling displaced. But we've gotten into a conversation around what her vision is to build for her team and the reputation that it represents, and having a culture that not only wins, but that people want to be a part of her team. And the reason for that is because of the way that she chooses to lead it. And for her, as her specialty area comes from knowing the process and knowing the steps and knowing how to execute, relinquishing that control to now a team that you oversee is really hard to do. But what we've done is put this in an example that we call middle school grade math, show me your work. This allows her to observe her team in the way that they lead through the steps up to a final answer or result. And what we found through this is that by her protecting time to meet with her teams one-on-one and they show the work, she's able to understand their thought process. She's able to understand how they are taking things from A to Z through the entire process and poke holes in it. And that amount of time that she dedicated at the very beginning of her position allowed her to move at lightning speed within 6 months of being in this role. Not because the team was upgraded, not because she waved a magic wand. It's because she invested her time into teaching and validating the quality of work that her teams were then going to produce. They understood the expectation, but it's because she chose to give up the time up front and committed and went all into it. She declined meetings, she declined calls, and in the responses to those declines, she said, I'm spending time alongside my team. We are teaching and training as a team. And having that type of leader who wants you to show me your work doesn't mean they're a micromanager. It means that they're setting you up for something bigger if they do it in the right way. Which, if you don't know how to do that, reach out to your girl. I would love to help you do that. Now I'm going to move to number 5. So question number 5 is, how much value will you create? Notice my wording here. Not could create, not would create, not should create, will. How much value will you create? Because it is about your commitment to contribution. Question number 6. How many people are you determined to meet to share that value with? And how creative are you willing to be to meet those people? Think about it. Networking and connection. They're so important. And regardless of the size of the company that you work in, you probably are shaking your head at understanding just how important both networking and connecting are. But when you know the value that you bring to the table that could look different than what the team has previously experienced, or because you have an ability of creative ideas that impact the future direction of the business, people want to hear from you. And when you position yourself in the right way to network and connect with the right people, whether that's your personal board of advisors, whether that is a dream position that you aspire to get to, reach out and take the initiative to get that conversation in the works. Because when you choose to do the legwork, to network and to build your connections, you will add value. But how much value are you willing to add? Here's what I want you to do right now. Stop whatever you're doing, unless you're driving, of course, then good for you. Maybe re-listen to this when you're stationary. But write these 6 questions down. And then choose one of them to sit with for an entire week. Just one question. Notice what shifts. Notice what opens up. Notice what becomes possible when you start asking better questions. You start asking better questions to yourself. You start asking better questions to your boss. And you start asking better questions to your team. If you're ready to explore what these questions mean, and if you're ready to explore these questions deeper, I invite you to join my weekly leadership inspiration update. It is free, it is valuable, and it's where I share a lot of insights and more detail and more frequency. And you can find the link in the show notes to follow along yourself. Remember that the quality of your leadership is determined by the quality of your questions. Until next time, keep asking better questions. That's it for this episode of Legacy Lounge, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to lead with purpose. Remember, leadership begins with you. When you're connected to your values, strengths, and authentic self, you show up powerfully for your team, businesses, and everyone you lead. To authentically lead others, you must first lead yourself. I challenge you to consider, how are you investing in your personal growth to create a legacy that you envision? Thank you for joining me in the Legacy Lounge. If this episode sparked any thoughts or inspired action, I'd love to hear from you. I'm your host, Brin'na Rollins-Williams. Connect with me on LinkedIn or other socials, and let's continue the conversation. Remember, your legacy is built one intentional step at a time.